Or who have they played, Lou?
Week 2 of the 2019 college football season is officially in the books, and we had some pretty good games this past weekend, and we had some pretty highly ranked teams that took a loss. How's that going to affect the Uncle Lou top 10 poll? Of course, the AP and the coaches poll came out yesterday, and I normally do this video on Sunday, but I did the Your Season is Over video yesterday morning, and I'm not going to lie, I was just wore out after that, so I decided to wait till this morning to work on this top 10 video. So anyway, without any further ado, or maybe just a little bit more ado, let's get to today's video, the Week 3 Uncle Lou College Football Poll.
Or who have they played, Lou?
Hey, good morning, and that's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, in addition to that as well. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos every single day of the year, year-round. It never stops here on LouTube. Give this video a thumbs up heading into, I guess now, Week 3, right, of the college football season, and I'm getting ready to unveil this week's top 10 list. Just like usual, I'm going to put last week's top 10 list up on the screen. Now, this is my poll from last week, so this isn't the coaches poll or the AP poll. This is the Uncle Lou poll from last week, and you can see it. There it is, and you can tell already from looking at it. 2 of the teams in my top 10 lost last week. And this early in the season, you have to be undefeated to stay in the Uncle Lou top 10 poll. So I can tell you right now, both those teams will be falling out. So that means we have at least 2 new teams debuting this week in the Uncle Lou top 10 poll. All right, let's get started here. We're going to do this the same way we always do it. I'm going to start at the top with number 10, and then I'm going to work my way down to number 1. I'm going to do my best to explain to you why I have the teams ranked the way that I do, and it's up to you to agree or disagree. And, of course, anytime you make any list of anything, not everyone is going to agree with it, obviously, and I don't expect all of you to agree with this poll. This is just my poll. This is just the way I do it. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10 this week on the Uncle Lou poll, a brand new team to the poll. I have decided to do the same thing I did last year with this team. I did this last year. I said, I'm going to put this team at number 10. I think it was about this time in the season when I did it, too. I said, I'm going to put this team at number 10. They're never moving up, no matter what. I don't care what they do. They're not going higher than 10. And I'm not moving them away from number 10 unless they lose a game. This week at number 10, Central Florida. 2 games, 2 blowouts. Yeah, I mean, I know they haven't played any good teams, but that's going to be the case most of the year for Central Florida, right? They do have Stanford coming up, who looks like a pretty good team. We'll see how that works out. I'm pretty sure they get them at home too. So that's one keeping an eye on. I think they play Pittsburgh. So they play a couple of Power 5 teams this year. We'll see how they do. If they beat those Power 5 teams, I don't care if it's by 1 point, they're staying at number 10 in this poll. They drop one of those games, they're dropping out. It's just the way it is. Why do I do it that way? Central Florida's not making a playoff. They're just not. Whether it's fair or not is not the point. I think we all can agree that no matter what Central Florida does this year, they're not cracking the top 4 in a final playoff poll. They're just not. So I'm going to put them at number 10. No other poll has them at number 10, so it's not that I'm totally disrespecting them. In fact, as of right now, I'm giving them more respect than any other poll you can find. But I'm going to put them at number 10 this week in the poll. Number 9, another new team here for the Uncle Lou poll here in Week 3. This team obviously is undefeated. This is a Power 5 team. This team has outscored their opponents in the first 2 weeks 110 to 0. 0.
But who have they played, Lou?
It don't matter who they played. Do you know how hard it is to shut somebody out? Wisconsin comes in this week at number 9. Wisconsin might be the most undervalued team in most of the other polls that you see, and that's because of where they started in the preseason, which, of course, is a fatal flaw of all preseason polls. Every poll you do once the season starts is based off of where that poll started, which, of course, was in the preseason. So preconceived notions are just inherent in polls. Wisconsin did not have a great year last year, especially compared to the years they've had, over the last 4, 5, 6 years. I think they ended up winning 8 games last year. Of course, took the loss to BYU. And we already know from this past weekend, if you lose to BYU, not a very good team, Tennessee. So, but listen, 110-0, it's not easy to shut anybody out, ever. To do it 2 weeks in a row, the competition has not been the best, I will be the first to admit. Now, they played South Florida, who's not a very good team, played another nobody last week. They'll be getting into their Big Ten schedule here coming up pretty soon, and we'll see if they can continue to play at this high of a level. But you already know I think Jonathan Taylor is one of the most exciting players to watch in all of college football. The guy's going to crack 6,000 yards probably by the time this season is over. Career, obviously not this year. He's a true junior. He got 1,900 and something yards one year and a little over 2,000 yards the other year. So he's sitting at around 4,000 yards heading into this season. And, he's already off to a great start this year. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to see him shatter a whole lot of rushing records this year, which will be his last year. He'll obviously go pro next year after this being his junior year, but just an unbelievable talent. I think he should be invited to New York if he gets anywhere close to – if he finishes this season close to 2,000 yards, which puts him at 6,000 for his career. I think he should at least be invited to New York. Now, depending on what some of the other quarterbacks do, okay, maybe you don't give him the award, but I think he's earned the right to be in New York for the Heisman if he finishes this season with 6,000 yards. I mean, that's just unbelievable to do in today's football. You just don't see that anymore. I mean, these are Herschel Walker numbers that Jonathan Taylor is putting up. I'm not comparing him to Herschel Walker. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying it's been a long time since we've seen a running back run for 2,000 yards 3 years in a row, and that would be the case if Jonathan Taylor can get there this year. But I think you got to start paying attention to Wisconsin. 110-0 in the first 2 weeks of the season is not easy to do. They come in this week in the UNCLELOU poll at number 9. That brings us to number 8 in the poll. Of course, last week I had Texas at number 8. I had Washington at 9, as you can see on the screen. So both of those teams obviously have dropped out, like I mentioned at the top. So who takes Texas's place at number 8 in the poll this week? I have Notre Dame. I was not impressed with Notre Dame week 1 against Louisville. Now, we saw a lot of teams play a little bit sloppy week 1. My problem is we didn't get to see Notre Dame play week 2 to see if they have improved any from week 1 to week 2 because they had a bye week this past weekend, right? Now, they play Georgia coming up in a couple of weeks. So regardless of what you think about Notre Dame or Georgia, for that matter, one of those two teams is losing in 2 weeks. Now, I obviously think it's going to be Notre Dame. I think Georgia is a better team. And one of the biggest problems I saw in that Notre Dame versus Louisville game was Notre Dame's inability to stop the run. And, of course, that's objective number 1 anytime you play a Kirby Smart Georgia team. We've had an elite ground game for the past 2 seasons, and we're off to a great start again this year. We've got 3 or 4 NFL running backs, the best offensive line in college football, and that's a recipe for disaster if you're a team that has trouble stopping the run. The way to beat Georgia, obviously, is to slow down that run and try to make them throw the ball. Not that they're terrible at throwing the ball. They just don't do it very often. So if you can force them into throwing situations, that's what you want to do. I didn't see that Notre Dame had the ability to do that in week 1. We'll see what they look like this week coming up, the week before the Georgia game. But I've got them at number 8 this week in the UNCLELOU poll. Number 7, probably the most controversial team of this past weekend, an overtime win over Army. I have Michigan coming in at number 7. So I did drop them 1 spot from 6 to 7. There's a lot of you that just see the name Army and Michigan overtime and say, oh, my God, Michigan's terrible. Listen, Army is a really good team. I don't know if you just haven't been paying attention or what. They've won 10 or more games each of the last 3 years, Army has. Okay? They won 11 games last year. They've won a bowl game 3 years in a row. They had a top 10 rushing game last year with that triple option. I think they were 7th at 280-something yards a game. They had a top 20 defense last year. And they play keep away. That's what they do. If Army gets in let's say you stop Army on first and second down. First of all, they're going to drain 40 seconds off the clock between first and second down. They're going to drain 40 seconds off the clock between second and third down every single time. If they have 3rd and 12, they're going to drain another 40 seconds off the clock. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to run it up the middle. Then they're going to drain another 40 seconds off the clock before they punt. So even if you're holding Army to 3 and out, you're losing 4 minutes off the clock. What does that mean? It limits possessions for the other team. Go back and look at the Army-Oklahoma game from last year. Oklahoma can score points at will. Everyone knows this. Offense is not their issue, and we'll get to them in a minute. Oklahoma moves up and down the field and scores on almost everybody they play. Look at the Army-Oklahoma game from last year. Why did Oklahoma not score 50 points in that game? They didn't have enough possessions because Army plays keep away. And Army ended up losing that game to Oklahoma in, I believe, triple overtime. I know it went to overtime. I think it was triple overtime. So all these people that are throwing Michigan under the bus and in the trash can after beating Army in overtime this past year, like I said, I just don't know if it's a thing where you just haven't been paying attention. It's a disrespect to Army. I hate for Michigan. I don't know what it is. Now, has Michigan looked like an elite team, one of the best 4 or 5 teams in America this year? No, they haven't. Offensively, they're behind where I thought they would be, and I think behind where a lot of people thought they would be. But to use the Army game as a reason to say Michigan doesn't belong in the top 10, and I've even heard some people say they shouldn't even be in the top 20, is just ridiculous. Army's going to win a bunch of games again this year. Okay, they're a really good team. Are they a top 10 team? Are they a top 15 or top 20 team? No, they're not. But when you're a Power 5 team that only plays the option once every 5 or 10 years, it's extremely difficult to stop and slow down. Georgia Tech had some success with it against ACC teams, a little bit. Almost no success against Georgia with it in the 10 years or whatever they were running it. And even against the ACC teams that they played every year, those teams eventually get better and better at it as they face it year after year after year after year. Where you see these triple option teams really surprise teams is when they play teams that don't ever play the triple option, like Michigan, like Oklahoma. We saw Alabama struggle with it. Was it last year or the year before? I think against the Citadel or Georgia Southern or whoever it was. So it happens. It doesn't mean Michigan is a terrible team. Obviously, they're not elite, top 4 or 5 or whatever. But the idea that because they beat Army in overtime means they're not any good is just a ridiculous one. I've got them at, number 7 in this week's Uncle Lou poll. All right, number 6, Oklahoma, OU. I've seen Oklahoma as high as 3. I've seen them at 6. I've seen some people put them at 7. I think anywhere in the 3 to 7 range, you can make a case or an argument for Oklahoma. I've got them at 6, and I'll be honest, just like UCF's not going any higher than 10 no matter what happens, I may have to move Oklahoma up later in the year when some of these teams ahead of them start catching losses. Until Oklahoma decides they're going to start playing a legitimate defense, I mean, if they go undefeated, they'll get in the playoff again, but 2 games in. Now, everybody's talking about Jalen Hurts, and he's off to an amazing start. But is anyone really surprised that Oklahoma is scoring 40, 50, 60 points a game? If you are, why? I mean, it's almost an Oklahoma quarterback is almost like a Georgia running back. It almost doesn't matter who's back there. Any Georgia running back that gets 10 carries a game is going to get 1,000 yards for the year. Doesn't matter who it is. We proved that last year with Elijah Holyfield. Guy's not that good. Okay? Didn't get drafted. Picked up as a free agent by the Panthers. Cut. And I think he's on the practice squad or something. He's just, and that's how an Oklahoma quarterback is. So is anyone surprised that Jalen Hurts is doing well in the Oklahoma offense against 2 teams that aren't in the Power 5? They've yet to play a Power 5 team, okay? Defensively, they're 77th in total defense. Now, just like I said all offseason, that's about a 50 spot improvement from last year. They were about 120 in total defense last year. So they're up, 43 spots? Whatever it is, 50 some, whatever. They're up 40 or 50 spots. 77th in total defense, and they've yet to play a Power 5 team. Say what you want about the Big 12. We're gonna see some of these teams score points on Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Baylor, West Virginia. No, I'm just kidding. West Virginia ain't no good, but you get the point. They've played 2 Group of 5 teams. Actually, the second one I don't even think was a Group of 5 team. But anyway, they haven't played any Power 5 teams at all. And they're 77th in total defense. It looks like more the same to me from the Oklahoma defense. So I don't see any point in having them any higher than 6. Like I said, if they go undefeated, they'll end up in the playoff because there won't be enough teams to put ahead of them. But, it's going to be, different verse, same as the first. They'll lose in the first round no matter who they play. But I've got them at number 6 this week in the poll. Now, number 5, LSU. I know LSU is 3 in a lot of polls, and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. They probably have either the best or second best win of any team in the top 5, right? Yeah. Clemson has a good win against Texas A&M. LSU has a good win against Texas. Those would be considered good wins, right? Here's the rest of the top 5 because it didn't change from last week. But Ohio State, they haven't played a Power 5 team yet, but look what they've done offensively. I've got them at 4. Well, let me finish up with LSU. Joe Burrow, absolutely amazing. I don't know what else you can say about this guy, right? 4th in America in passing yards. I don't know if they put prop bets out on that in the offseason on, how many passing yards someone has or what. There isn't a person on planet Earth, including LSU fans, who thought Joe Burrow would be 4th in America in passing after week 2. Not a single one. Now, yeah, a lot of people thought he would be better. We all know what happened with the Corn Dogs going out and bringing in the guy from the Saints to help him learn the spread and to throw the ball and things like that. So I think we all expected some improvement offensively from LSU. But to be fair, we've expected some improvement offensively from LSU for the last 8 or 9 years, and we haven't gotten it. This year, you're getting it. LSU's offense is absolutely elite this year. Joe Burrow has 900. Did I write this down? Joe Burrow has 749 yards passing in 2 games, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I'm sure most of you probably watched that Texas LSU game. It was unbelievable watching him and Ellinger go back and forth. It's no disrespect to Texas that LSU won. Texas put up a good fight in that game. Tom Herman blew that game for Texas really by making dumb decisions early in that game, going for it on 4th down inside the 10 and stuff instead of kicking a field goals and getting points on the board when that game was really, really close. Stupid coaching decision there by Tom Herman. He probably had his mind on which strip club he was going to after the game instead of on making the right decision on 4th downs in the red zone. But anyway, nevertheless, Texas caught an L because of it. But it was a really good game. Ellinger and Burrows played great. But Ellinger had a great year last year, so I think it's more surprising to see what Burrow is doing versus Ellinger. Ellinger's kind of giving you what you knew you were going to get with him. I think Burrow is surprising a lot of people. LSU's at 5 in my poll. You can have them at 5, 4, 3. It would make sense to me. Again, I don't think anybody is really going to – this was a big game, and a lot of people watched it. People want to see what LSU is going to do against Alabama, right? LSU was a pretty good team last year. They had Alabama at home, got shut out 29-0. It was, just no offense at all. Now, the offense looks a lot better this year. I don't think anybody expects another shutout in that game, but they have to play at Tuscaloosa this year. So, there's no sense really in arguing now about whether LSU should be 5-4 or 3 because they have that Bama game coming up. And they have a lot of good games coming up, a lot of chances to keep proving themselves over and over again. They'll play Auburn. They'll play Texas A&M. They'll play Mississippi State. So they'll play some good teams here down the road, and we'll see if they can keep this momentum going. But I've got them at number 5 in this week's poll. So at number 4, I have Ohio State. Now, they're the only team in my top 5 who hasn't played a Power 5 team. LSU has a win over Texas. Georgia has a win over Vanderbilt. Bama has a win over Duke. Clemson has a win over Texas A&M. So I don't see any reason why Ohio State should be higher than 4. LSU, I do. I can understand people putting LSU at 3 or 4. If you've got Ohio State any higher than 4, then I would question that. they've got to beat a Power 5 team. Now, with that being, that's not one of these who have they played thing. Obviously, if you've watched Ohio State games, they're really, really good on both sides of the ball. Justin Fields has surprised a lot of people. Not me. I saw it coming. A lot of Georgia fans with their head in the sand when it comes to Justin Fields, still refusing to admit that the guy is off to a great, great start. 557 total yards, 9 total touchdowns, no interceptions, completing 76% of his passes.
But who have he played, Lou?
Well, he played Cincinnati and beat them 42-0, who beat a Power 5 team the week before in UCLA, okay? Again, a lot of these people just get up and look at the box score in the morning and they see Ohio State 42, Cincinnati nothing, and they just go, oh, wait, it's Cincinnati. They're not watching the games. You can tell, the score doesn't even have anything to do with it. You can tell a good team by watching them play. Watch Ohio State play. They're a very dangerous team. And if Justin Fields continue, you have to assume he's only going to get better. Let's remember, the last 2 games are the only 2 games that Justin Fields has ever played. Georgia put him in for, Georgia would run him into the game 1 play at a time on second downs to run up the middle, right? And then a couple of times in garbage time they put him in and let him play a little. But in terms of meaningful playing time, Justin Fields has 2 starts. He's looked amazing in both of them.
But who have they played?
Watch the game, okay? The guy looks pretty good. I think it's fair to have Ohio State at 4 or 5 if you want to bump LSU ahead of them. Either one of those would be fine with me. I had Ohio State at 4 last week, and LSU obviously had the best win. They did what they needed to do to move up in my poll. My problem is nobody ahead of LSU did anything that made me go, maybe I should move them down 1. Ohio State won 42-0. You can tell me it's Cincinnati, and I get it. But, again, when you play these lower-tier schools, all you can do is beat the hell out of them. And if that's what you do, what more do you want them to do, okay? If Clemson played Texas A&M. If Bama, Georgia, or Ohio State had struggled against any of the teams they played this weekend, winning by 7 to 10 points, 13 points, whatever, losing in the fourth quarter and coming back and winning, whatever, I'd have dropped them down. All 3 of those teams, Ohio State, Georgia, and Bama, went out and completely dominated lower-tier teams. Georgia scored more points than I can ever remember them scoring in my lifetime. They got up in the 60s. Bama completely manhandled New Mexico State. Could have scored 100 if they wanted to. And Ohio State 42-0 over Cincinnati. So all 3 of those teams did what you want to do. Georgia showed a little bit of its passing game. That's enough to pacify me for this week. I want to see more. George Pickens is a grown man. All he needs is game experience. That's it. He's got all the physical tools, the talents, the instinct, the athletic ability. We saw that with that diving catch. He's got everything except game experience. I would like to see Georgia's offense with Fromm at the quarterback. So in the first half next week, because we play Arkansas State, I would like to see Fromm with more than 11 pass attempts. Not necessarily because I need to see that from Fromm, but these wide receivers need more experience, in my opinion. That's take that for what it's worth. I was happy with what I saw this week, especially in the second quarter from Fromm and the passing game. I'd like to see a little bit more of that this week against Arkansas State, setting us up for the big showdown the following week against Notre Dame. Alabama, they finally found their running game this past weekend after it was missing an action week 1 against Duke. Put up huge numbers passing and throwing. I mean, they did what we've seen Bama do the last 7-8 years against these nobody schools. They go out, they winning 40-0 at halftime, whatever it is, and add 2 or 3 more touchdowns in the second half for the second and third team. I mean, what more is there to say about the Alabama game? There's no need to pay attention to Alabama unless they're playing someone named Texas A&M, LSU, or Auburn. That's it. No one else they play this season in the regular season is capable of even coming close to them, including South Carolina, who they play this coming week. They'll probably beat South Carolina about as bad as they beat New Mexico State, to be honest. And, of course, number 1, Clemson. They didn't do anything and haven't done anything to lose this number 1 ranking. They played a top 15 Texas A&M team at home. The game, I don't think, was nearly as close as the final score indicated. Clemson ended up winning by 14, which was a big deal to a lot of people that were betting on this game. because the spread was around 17 or 18, depending on when you bet it. And, of course, Clemson was up by 21 late in that game. Texas A&M got down to, I think, just inside the 10-yard line, 10 seconds to go, and they actually called a timeout to try to score, which was great if you had Texas A&M into points, because that cut the lead from 21 to 14. So if you had Texas A&M plus 17 or 18, that made you a winner. If you took Clemson at the minus 17 or 18, it made you a loser. So you were either really, really happy with what Jimbo Fisher did at the end of that game, or you were really, really mad with what Jimbo Fisher did at the end of that game. But again, their defense dominated Texas A&M, so give them some credit there. I still think Trevor Lawrence looks a little off to me. Trevor Lawrence, to me, does not look like the Trevor Lawrence that we saw over the last 4, 5, 6 games of last season. He split time the first 4 weeks, and then he got hurt a little right after that. But then he really started to ramp up, and by the end of the season, he looked like an absolute beast. I mean, he looked like the best quarterback in college football. He hasn't looked like the best quarterback in college football to me the first 2 weeks. Has he looked bad? No. But again, Trevor Lawrence is being compared this year to the Trevor Lawrence we saw at the end of last year, and I think even Clemson fans would agree he's a little off. His accuracy seems to be a little off. Now, he's got some amazing wide receivers that are able to save him a lot of times with some, acrobatic, athletic catches. He just hasn't looked the same to me. Now, it's only week 2. You have Texas A&M. They handled them. We thought Syracuse was going to be a pretty big game for Clemson. Now, they do still have to travel up there and play, but Syracuse looked like a total mess this past weekend, getting absolutely manhandled by the Maryland Turtles, something that the Texas Longhorns know all about. So the Syracuse-Clemson game coming up this weekend isn't nearly as intriguing as it was 3 days ago before we saw Syracuse get absolutely obliterated. But anyway, that's this week's top 10. So feel free to let me know where you disagree down below in the comment section. Again, anytime you make a list, top 5, top 10, top 25 of anything, movies, top 10 ways to eat a baked potato, to eat a potato, whatever. No one's going to agree. I understand that. I don't make these to try to make people agree with me. I do try to give my reasoning for where I have the teams where I do. So there it is. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you again real soon. Have a great morning.
Why, who have they played, Lou?